the past few years, we have seen a lot of video game remakes and remasters that have come out and have been disasters because we've seen major changes being made to that original material. But with Lollipop Chainsaw Repop, that wasn't the case. It wasn't censored, it wasn't toned down, and it was a great experience overall. And I actually had the opportunity to interview the RePOP producer, Yoshimi Yasuda, and we talked about the state of the industry, how they balanced artistic vision with market demands, his personal philosophy when it comes to creating memorable gaming experiences, and it was just a really good time. But before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I have always loved Lollipop Chainsaw. I have so many copies of the original. I thought that RePOP came out and it was really spectacular, but leading up to launch, we were all very worried about it potentially being censored and toned down. And while there were some slight changes because of licensing, like with the soundtrack, it overall was a very good experience. And I got the opportunity just yesterday to interview the producer, Yoshimi Yasuda. We talked about a lot of different things, and I really think that you guys are going to be interested. I asked roughly 7 questions. He answered them all. It was a great experience all around. He was very nice. But the first one was it exciting working on RePOP? Were any of you nervous with the task presented to you? And I imagine that they would be panicking because it is very tough to do things like remasters without changing any of the major material this day and age, especially for a game that was this edgy. Lollipop Chainsaw is a cult classic because of its humor, because of Juliet's design, because of so many different things that in the modern day could not fly with a lot of companies, but they did that seamlessly. He said working on RePOP was a pretty thrilling experience, and the transition from Unreal Engine 3 to 5 was especially challenging. We were blindsided by how different just 2 generations had made it, and to be frank, half of the source code had to be rewritten from scratch. We didn't actually know this until now. On the other hand, advancements in technology let us implement CG expressions that we were unable to put in the original release, bringing a positive spin to the challenges we faced, almost making it fun. For example, in the original version, we used special lighting to make Juliet look more pretty in cutscenes, but in RePOP, we didn't need to add anything special to make Juliet better. She was naturally beautiful. I love hearing creatives actually praise their creations. So often, we hear people go, oh, well, we wanted to modernize the content. That is not the case here. They know how beautiful she is. They knew how important it was to keep her looking beautiful, and they did just that. My second question was, you went from being a CEO to an executive producer and director. The gaming industry has evolved a lot during your time in it. Is there anything you miss from the beginning days that you think is missing now? And he said, what I miss from the earlier days of the industry here in Japan is the more constructive communication between creators and fans. Recently, the trend has been that new releases are immediately met with criticism, and sometimes these criticisms are based on misunderstandings or wrong interpretations. And this is true, especially when we're looking at other regions, like with Japanese creators and Western audiences. This is actually why I made sure to provide the answers that he gave in Japanese as well, so that there is no miscommunication, there's no misunderstanding. You can see exactly what he said, because at the end of the day, this does become a problem. There's sometimes language barriers between creatives. And yes, I mean, our first reactions are always going to be judge teasers and trailers and the content that we're seeing, which can lead to, misunderstandings or lots of questions that we don't get answers to, and then even more speculation. The third question was, do you feel artistic vision and creativity are being stifled at all due to market trends? And this was really the main question that I went into this wanting to ask him, because I have covered so much censorship on this channel and how much the market has changed over the years, and how there are so many creatives who speak out and say, I can't make what I want because my content is constantly censored. I mean, look at the way that platform holders act these days. PlayStation, well, it's technically Sony, and Valve with Steam, and even Nintendo. Unfortunately, there is a lot of content that is just not allowed on their platforms anymore. And they tell developers, oh, well, if you censor it, you could potentially release it, but then they're not given clear and concise guidelines, which I think is terrible, and it leads to them toning down their work. But he answered, as a game creator who also serves as a CEO, I can take on the responsibility for decisions on such issues, so it doesn't personally worry me much. For example, with a project like RePOP, where we sought to make a faithful reproduction of the original, we approached development with the primary goal of perfectly recreating the artistry and creativity expressed in the original version. I think they did a pretty good job. Technically, yes, there is like a more censored mode because in RePOP mode, it's much more comic book like. There's more like comic book elements and visual effects, and I personally like them, but if you don't like them, you can play the OG mode in all of its glory without any of those added effects. And I am very glad that they did faithfully reproduce the original. I live stream both the Repop and OG mode. I'm probably going to stream it again in the future when Nightmare mode eventually comes out, but they did a really good job with it, at least in my opinion. However, I do feel that changes in the market are making it harder for game creators to maintain the freedom they once had. The market has become more monopolized, with the winning games dominating the market, meaning the share available for games in second place and beyond continues to shrink. And this is a very sad reality. There are a lot of indie games right now that are thriving and AA studios that are doing really great, but those are still kind of few and far between when they become smashing successes and they're releasing products that are making hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. And we see companies like Ubisoft's and BioWare's dominate, but that's just because of brand recognition, and they are allowed to kind of think outside the box. But there are a lot of creators who still have to cater to the higher ups demands, and it is sad to hear him admit that he thinks that changes in the market are making it harder for game creators to maintain the freedom they once had. But with how much I've covered censorship over the years, it's really a no-brainer and it's very obvious. He also says in such a market environment, the mental pressure on creators is considerable. When creators lose their freedom, the creativity that drives passion and playfulness in a game tends to be lost as well, and this isn't a good thing, which I totally and completely agree with that it is not. Number 4 is how do you balance artistic vision with market demands? And he said, for RePop, we decided to shift our strategy during development to faithfully recreate the original version. It was supposed to be a remake off the bat when they first announced it, and then they changed it to a remaster, which I do think was the smart move. It made me sad that we didn't get a full-blown remake, but on the flip side, I was always very afraid that the artistic direction would have been too different and it would have felt too modern. So I think that this was always the best case scenario. He says this does not mean we gave up the idea of a remake, but rather that we decided to first release a faithful port and then add the remake elements after launch. The most significant reason behind this decision was the requests from fans who told us that they wanted us to first recreate the original game as faithfully as possible. Our top priority was thus to align with the wishes of the fans who had been sending us messages ever since the title was announced, which I think is so amazing that they changed their plan because that's what fans wanted. This is the way that studios should act. This is the way that CEOs should respond to fan feedback, that they take our feedback into consideration, and that's what they did from, the very beginning. They focused on faithfully adapting it. Their priority was giving fans what they wanted, and it all paid off for them. The post-launch remake mode we plan to implement differs slightly from what we originally envisioned during development, but the base concept of Juliet engaging in high-speed battles with the strongest zombies remains unchanged. So post-launch, yes, they are actually going to be adding like a full remake mode, which I think is good. And I think, again, is super cool of them to do. They're really putting in a lot of time and they're putting in a lot of effort, which is cool. My fifth question was, what role did fan feedback play in deciding to remake the cult classic RePOP? And he said, when we announced it, we received around 5,000 messages, including those from our official website and emails. Most of these were positive, welcoming the return of Lollipop Chainsaw, but we also noticed that many fans were requesting a faithful recreation. At that point, I first communicated to the users that it would be difficult to bring back the original licensed music, which was very sad to me. I love that OG music. I thought that it really added to the feel of the game. I still did enjoy what they created for RePOP, but it still makes me a little sad we weren't able to get it again, that OG soundtrack, but I completely understood the troubles that they faced with it. And he says, yeah, it was unfortunate. As the person managing the account, I found myself in a position where I faced both the expectations of try doing it and the intense pressure of don't you dare betray us. To be honest, I didn't initially take the issue of censorship very seriously. Back when we released the original version 12 years ago, I had gone through intense debates with platform holders to get it approved, and based on that experience, I thought there would not be any major issues. However, it quickly became clear that the debate surrounding censorship had changed significantly over the past 12 years. At that point, I realized that implementing both the faithful original mode and the high-speed battle mode, or nightmare mode, to eliminate the sluggish feeling and bring a refreshing gameplay experience at the same time would be challenging. So I made the decision that we should focus on implementing the uncensored mode first, with the nightmare mode being scheduled as a post-launch update. Eventually, we completed the game, got approval from rating agencies and platform holders, and it was released, leading us to where we are today. And yeah, I am glad to hear that he's at least admitting that he didn't initially take the issue of censorship very seriously, but his opinion has changed over the past couple of years. And this is the way that creatives really should act, trying to understand what people are saying, how gamers are feeling, how the industry is shifting, and he definitely has. My sixth and second to last question was, what's your personal philosophy when it comes to creating memorable gaming experiences? And he said, I may have worked in game development for over 20 years as a CEO and game creator, but before that, I was also a hardcore gamer for 26 years. Because of this, I always keep the player's perspective in mind when checking the quality of a game. As such, looking at it from the player's perspective is something I always incorporate into the game's development process, which, yes, I mean, is really lacking right now with, in my opinion, a lot of video games that are releasing. A lot of the higher ups at companies just view the industry as a way to make money, which I get. Companies need to make money, but if they're not giving us great experiences that are worth our time and our money, and they're not hiring people who are passionate, you're going to end up in a position where we feel overlooked. And that's how a lot of gamers feel right now. And he's saying that, yeah, they always wanted to look at it from the player's perspective, which is really cool. And the last question was, is there anything you or the team would like to say to the players who loved the experience? And the English answer was, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has shown interest in RePOP from my heart. The smooth progress of RePOP's development and release is thanks to your honest feedback and warm support. We are currently still working on Nightmare Mode, and we'll do our best to ensure that we can bring you high quality content, which is really cool to hear. When RePOP launched, there were some people facing bugs and glitches, but they have worked tirelessly on fixing those and addressing those. And Yoshimi Yasuda has really done a good job communicating with gamers. And of course, there has been a large number of times where he has taken to his X account and he has thanked people for the support, and he's given us updates on the state of the game and some of the content that they have planned in the future. But it is good to hear that reiterated. Yet again, it is always awesome to be able to talk to people like him who are just passionate, who want to provide people with good experiences and hopefully, live up to the expectations of gamers, which I really think that the team did with Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP. And he has actually teased some of the plans for the future and the game. He had just posted how the Japanese voice English subtitles will be implemented at the same time as photo mode and the goth outfits. So in early February, there is an update that adds photo mode and these outfits, which is super cool. I know we have been waiting for that for a while. I'm very excited to see that. I cannot wait to play as Juliet in this outfit. I am certainly going to be replaying it. And photo mode is something that, we ask for in any game that, yeah, I mean, has quite a bit of fan service, like Stellar Blade, for example. It was awesome that they ended up releasing the photo mode for Eve, and I'm really glad that in this case with RePOP that is also happening. So I thought that this was a really good interview, and I was really happy with the experience. He's a very nice guy. I have talked to him in the past, and he answered all of the questions that I thought you guys would also find really interesting. So take to my social media, follow me on X, make sure to share this. Also, make sure to follow him and the official Lollipop Chainsaw account. And I'm sure I'll be doing more interviews in the future, but I thought that it was really cool to talk to the team about if they were nervous to remaster the cult classic, how they balanced artistic vision with market demands, his personal philosophy when it comes to creating memorable gaming experiences, and more. But for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.